The human woke up with a heavy head. At first he thought he was still inside his small sleeping pod on the ship. But when his eyes opened fully, the place around him was nothing like the ship. He was lying on a smooth floor that looked like glass glowing with soft blue light. The air felt fresh but strange, like it was made for breathing yet not natural. Slowly he stood up and looked around, his heart beating faster. The chamber was round, wide, and tall, like the inside of a crystal dome. Strange patterns moved along the walls, shining in different colors. They did not look like human technology. The more he looked, the more it felt alive, as if the walls themselves were watching him. He whispered to himself, "Where am I?" But the sound of his voice echoed too loudly. It felt like he had woken up inside a dream. The human checked his arms and chest quickly. He was still wearing his spacesuit, though his helmet was gone. The floor was warm under his boots, which made no sense because there was no sun. He searched his memory. Last night he had been on a routine mission outside the ship. He remembered fixing a satellite module, the flash of strange green light, and then nothing. Now he was here inside this alien chamber. The silence was so strong that it made his ears ring. But then he felt something. A presence. He turned quickly, and there she was. A figure standing half hidden in the glowing mist. At the far end of the chamber, it was not a soldier, not a monster, but a girl. Her skin was pale silver, shining like moonlight, and her eyes glowed with soft violet light. She looked young, but her smile was not innocent. It was playful, sharp, like she already knew a secret about him. The human froze, not sure whether to speak or run. His training told him to stay calm, observe, and wait. But his heart told him that this was not normal, not safe. The girl stepped forward slowly, her feet making no sound on the glowing floor. Her long hair floated slightly, as if she was underwater, though there was no water here. Every movement she made was elegant, almost too perfect. When she spoke, her voice was soft, yet it carried across the chamber. "You humans wake up so slowly," she said with amusement. It shocked him that he could understand her words. How was she speaking English? Or was it something else, some translation in his mind? He opened his mouth to ask questions, but the girl lifted her hand. At that moment, he felt a sudden pressure in the air. His throat closed and no words came out. Not pain, not harm, but as if she had taken his voice away just for fun. Her violet eyes sparkled as she laughed gently. "Do not rush," she said. "I only want to see how you act when everything feels strange." The human's heart pounded harder. This was not an attack, but it was a game. He had been captured, brought here without warning. And now this alien girl was watching him like a curious child watching an insect. Her eyes studied every detail of him, from his hands to the shape of his face. He felt exposed under that gaze. It was not a warrior's stare, not an enemy's glare. It was something more playful, dangerous, in a different way. He tried to move, but his legs felt heavy. Was it fear? Or her power? He could not tell. The girl tilted her head and spoke again. "You are awake, human. But do you know why you are here?" Her words were both a question and a tease. The human shook his head slowly. He did not know the answer, but his instincts told him that this was only the beginning. The chamber grew brighter for a moment. The patterns on the walls pulsed like a heartbeat. The human realized he was not only being watched by the girl, the whole place was alive, and it was part of her amusement. A shiver ran down his back as he stood there trapped, unsure of what game had just begun. And the girl smiled wider, as if his fear was the very reaction she had been waiting for. The human stood frozen as the alien girl walked closer. Her violet eyes glowed brighter, and the air around her seemed to shimmer like heat. She looked at him the way a child looks at a toy she just discovered. There was no fear in her face, only playful curiosity. The human clenched his fists and tried to stay calm, but his heart was racing. Every step she took made the silence heavier, as if the entire chamber was holding its breath. Then, without warning, she lifted her hand and snapped her fingers. In an instant, his spacesuit was gone. One moment he felt the heavy layers around him. The next, he was bare. His body felt the strange warmth of the chamber directly on his skin. He gasped and stepped back in shock. What did you do? He wanted to say, but his voice cracked. The alien girl laughed softly, the sound like silver bells. Her expression was not cruel, but playful, like she was enjoying a private joke. She circled him slowly, her eyes scanning him from head to toe. So fragile, she whispered with amusement. Wrapped in armor, hidden behind machines, but without them, you are only human. Her words struck deep, but her tone was light, teasing rather than hateful. The human's cheeks burned with embarrassment. Never in his life had he felt so exposed, so vulnerable. And yet, there was no weapon in her hands, no threat of harm, only that mischievous smile that made him more nervous than any weapon could. The human forced himself to speak, his voice steady but low. "Give me my suit back," he demanded. The girl tilted her head, pretending to think. Then she shook her head slowly, her silver hair floating like threads of light. "No, not yet," she said. "I want to see more first." Her words sounded like a game, but there was power behind them. The human realized that begging would make him look weak. So he stood straighter, his eyes meeting hers, refusing to look away. For a moment she paused, surprised. Most humans would have begged, cried, or covered themselves in fear, but this one stood tall, even without protection. Her violet eyes narrowed with curiosity. "You are different," she whispered almost to herself. Then she smiled again, wider this time. "Good. This will be more fun." She flicked her hand, and suddenly the glowing patterns on the wall began to move. The chamber shifted around them, the floor rippling like liquid glass. The human struggled to keep his balance, but the girl walked smoothly as if the ground obeyed her. Strange shapes formed in the air, glowing orbs that floated like fireflies. They circled the human, spinning faster and faster. He felt a hum in the air, a vibration deep inside his bones. It was not an attack, not yet, but it was a test. She was playing with him, pushing him to react. The human clenched his jaw and refused to panic. He raised his hand, pretending to reach for one of the glowing orbs. It pulsed brighter, then faded at his touch. The alien girl clapped her hands softly, delighted. "You learn quickly," she said. "Most of your kind would be on the floor by now." Her words carried a mix of praise and mockery. The human's mind raced, searching for a way to turn her game against her. But she was always one step ahead, always in control. She leaned closer, her face inches from his, her glowing eyes locked onto his, searching, testing. "Tell me, human," she whispered, "how long can you stand without fear?" Her voice was gentle, but the challenge was sharp. The human took a deep breath and answered firmly, "As long as it takes." Her smile faded for just a moment, replaced by surprise. Then she laughed again, a sound that filled the chamber. "You are amusing," she said. "I like you." The chamber calmed, the glowing orbs fading into nothing. The floor grew still, and the strange vibrations disappeared. The human stood tall, refusing to show weakness. But inside his heart was pounding like a drum. The alien girl tilted her head again, her smile softer now. "You may keep your courage," she said, "but your clothes will not return yet." She stepped back, her eyes never leaving his. "This game is only beginning, human, and I am not finished with you." The chamber dimmed and the silence returned. The human knew then that he was caught in something far greater than himself. Not a trap of war, not a prison of stone, but a game. A dangerous game played by a powerful alien who found amusement in human spirit. And he was the only player, with no choice but to play. The human stood silently as the alien girl paced around him. Her steps were slow and graceful, but her smile was sharp and playful. She tilted her head, watching him like a puzzle she had not yet solved. The chamber lights reflected in her silver skin, making her glow like living moonlight. He could feel her amusement in the air, heavy and unsettling. She was not here to hurt him, not yet, but she was here to play. The human's body tensed, ready for anything. He had no suit, no weapon, no protection, only his will, and that will was the only thing keeping him from breaking under her gaze. The alien girl stopped in front of him, her eyes bright with mischief. "You humans hide. So much fear inside," she said, her voice almost musical. "Your machines, your walls, your armor, they are only masks." She leaned closer, her violet eyes burning into his. "But I want to see what is behind the mask." She raised her hand again, and the chamber changed instantly. The smooth floor turned transparent, and the human gasped. Below his feet was not ground, but a dark, endless space. He felt as if he was standing on nothing, floating above the void. The alien girl giggled at his reaction, her laughter echoing through the chamber. "Careful, human," she teased. "One wrong step and you may fall forever." The human forced himself to stand tall. His mind told him it was an illusion, a trick of her power, but his body still felt the chill of the endless drop. He swallowed hard and kept his balance, refusing to show fear. The alien girl clapped her hands once, and glowing platforms appeared, in the air. They hovered like stepping stones stretching into the darkness. She pointed toward them with a grin. "Walk," she said simply, her tone both command and dare. The human stared at the floating path, his jaw tightening. It was madness, but refusing might be worse, so he stepped forward, his bare foot touching the first glowing stone. It was solid under him, yet it pulsed like a heartbeat. Every step he took made the next stone appear, and every step echoed with the sound of her laughter behind him. The further he walked, the louder the chamber seemed to hum. Energy vibrated through the stones, shaking his legs. At one point, the stone beneath him flickered, almost vanishing. He froze, sweat rolling down his back. The alien girl's voice floated through the darkness. "Do you trust yourself, human, or do you only trust the ground beneath you?" Her words were like knives, sharp and playful. The human clenched his teeth and forced himself forward. Even when the stone shook under his weight, he kept moving. Each step was a battle between fear and will, but he refused to stop. At last he reached the end of the path. The floating stones vanished behind him, dissolving into sparks. He stood on a platform of light that formed beneath his feet. The alien girl appeared before him again, her smile wider. "You did not fall," she said, her voice full of delight. "Good, very good, but was it bravery or stubbornness?" The human answered firmly, "It was choice." Her laughter rang again, but this time softer, almost approving. She circled him once more, her long hair trailing like silver smoke. "You humans are strange," she whispered. "So weak in body, so fragile in form, yet your spirit resists." She touched his chest lightly with her finger. He felt a spark of energy run through him, sharp, but not painful. "You stand tall even when I strip you of everything," she said. "That is dangerous, human, dangerous, but entertaining." Her playful tone made the word dangerous sound like a compliment. The human met her gaze and refused to look away. He felt her testing him, pushing him, searching for cracks in his resolve. But he gave her nothing, only silence and strength. For the first time, her smile faded into something thoughtful. She was no longer just amused. She was intrigued. She had expected fear, maybe even tears. But instead she had found a human who refused to break. The chamber shifted again, the walls glowing brighter. The air hummed with her power as if the whole place was alive with her mood. She stepped back, her eyes narrowing with new interest. "This game," she said softly, "is becoming more fun than I expected." Her words carried a hint of promise and a hint of threat. The human understood then that her amusement was not safe. Her games were not simple tricks. They were trials, and failing them could mean the end. Yet even in that danger, he saw something else in her eyes. Not just cruelty, not just power, but curiosity. She wanted to understand him, to test him, to see what made humans different from everything she knew. And as she smiled once more, the human realized the truth. This was no random encounter, no accident. She had chosen him, singled him out, and she would not let him go until her dangerous kind of fun was complete. The chamber was quiet again, but the silence was heavy. The human stood on the glowing floor, bare and unprotected. Every muscle in his body was tense, but his mind was clear. He knew the alien girl was not trying to destroy him. Not yet. She was trying to measure him, to pull apart his spirit piece by piece, and he had no choice but to endure it. The alien girl paced slowly in front of him, her silver hair shining in the strange light. Her violet eyes followed his every movement, every breath. She smiled, but it was not the playful smile from before. Now it was sharper, focused, as if she was waiting for him to crack. "You are stubborn," she said softly, her voice carrying through the chamber. "Most humans break when I take away their comfort, their protection." Her eyes narrowed, her tone half amused, half curious. "But you stand tall, even without armor, even without pride." The human's throat was dry, but he spoke anyway. "Maybe you don't understand us as much as you think." His words were calm, but inside his chest his heart pounded. The alien girl tilted her head, her glowing eyes locked on him. Her lips curved into a smile, but there was no warmth in it. "Oh, I understand enough," she whispered. "I understand that fear controls you, even when you pretend it doesn't." With a flick of her wrist, the chamber changed again. The floor beneath the human trembled, then turned dark. From the shadows, shapes began to rise. They looked like tall figures, half human, half shadow. Their eyes glowed red, and their movements were slow but threatening. The human stepped back, instinctively, but caught himself. He knew it was another test, another illusion, but that did not make the fear vanish. The shadow figures moved closer, circling him. They whispered in broken voices, words he could not fully understand. The sound scratched at his mind, cold and sharp. One reached out, its long fingers stretching toward his chest. The human's breath caught, but he stood still. He remembered his training. Illusions could not harm him if he refused to believe, but it was easier said than done. The fear was real. The danger felt real. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to fight, to hide. But he forced his body to stay calm. The alien girl watched him closely, her eyes bright with excitement. She wanted him to break, to surrender to fear. But he clenched his fists and stared at the shadow figures. "Do what you want," he said through gritted teeth. "I'm not afraid." The moment the words left his mouth, the shadows froze, the chamber went still, and silence returned. Then slowly the shadows dissolved into smoke, vanishing into the glowing walls. The alien girl clapped her hands softly, her laughter ringing in the chamber. "Well done," she said, her voice light and teasing again. "You fought nothing, and yet you fought everything." Her violet eyes studied him as if he were a rare discovery. "You humans are more entertaining than I thought." The human exhaled slowly, his chest rising and falling. He had survived another test, but he knew it was not the last. Every time he refused to break, she only became more curious, more determined. It was a game to her, but to him, it was survival. And survival meant never giving her the weakness she wanted to see. She walked closer, her gaze softening for a moment. "You carry your spirit like a weapon," she whispered. "Even when I strip you of everything, you still resist." Her finger traced a glowing line in the air, and the chamber pulsed with light. "You are dangerous, human, not because of your strength, but because of your will." The human met, her gaze, his voice steady. "Maybe that's what makes us human." Her smile widened again, playful but sharper than before. "Maybe," she said, "or maybe it only makes you stubborn toys." She turned away, her hair flowing like liquid, silver. "But I want to see how long your spirit lasts before it finally bends." The chamber dimmed again, shadows stretching across the walls. The human took a deep breath, preparing himself for whatever came next. He knew her games were not finished, not even close. Each test was harder, sharper, more dangerous than the last. And yet, he also knew something else. The alien girl was no longer playing only for amusement. She was searching for something she needed to understand, and until she found it, his spirit would be tested again and again. The chamber pulsed with quiet energy, a soft hum running through the glowing walls. The human stood still, his body tense but his eyes steady. He had faced illusions, he had stood against fear, and he had not broken. The alien girl watched him, with a smile that was no longer just playful. There was something else behind it now, a sharper edge, a spark of curiosity mixed with respect. Her violet eyes glowed brighter, as if his defiance had awakened something inside her. "You resist, more than I expected," she said softly, her voice echoing through the chamber. Her silver hair shimmered as she moved, and the floor rippled beneath her steps. "I take away your armor, your safety, your pride, but you do not fall." She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Perhaps I underestimated the spirit of your kind." The human clenched his fists, his voice calm but firm. "You think you hold all the power, but maybe you are wrong." Her smile flickered, for the first time uncertain. It was only a moment. But he saw it, the crack in her playful mask. The chamber itself seemed to react to his words, the glowing pattern shifting like waves in a storm. The alien girl narrowed her eyes, stepping closer until her face was only inches away. "You dare challenge me in my own world," she whispered, her tone both warning and wonder. The human did not flinch, his gaze steady. "Maybe your power is great," he said, "but power means nothing if you don't know how to use it." Her lips parted slightly, as if the words had struck her deeper than she wanted to admit. For the first time, she was not only amused, she was unsettled. The chamber trembled faintly, as though her control was slipping. The human felt a shift in the air, the balance. Changing between them, she waved her hand quickly and the chamber flared with light. The floor beneath him split into glowing lines, the air vibrating with force. A wave of energy surged forward, rushing at him like a storm. The human braced, himself, his body stiff, his heart pounding. The blast struck him, but he stood his ground, refusing to move. The energy swirled around him like a furious wind, but it did not break him. When the light faded, he was still standing, his jaw tight, his eyes locked on hers. The alien girl's expression froze in surprise. Her hand trembled slightly before she lowered it. "You should not have survived that," she whispered, her voice softer now. "You are only human." And yet, she stopped, her words hanging in the air. The human took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling. "You think I am only human," he said, "but that is what makes me strong." His words echoed in the chamber, louder than his voice should have been. The walls pulsed in rhythm with his words, almost as if the chamber itself agreed. The alien girl stepped back, her smile returning, but it was different now. Not mockery, not simple amusement, but something more complex. "You are changing the game," she admitted, her tone carrying a hint of excitement. "No one has ever stood this long. No one has ever turned my power back on me." Her violet eyes blazed with a strange fire, a hunger to know more. She laughed suddenly, a bright, sharp sound that filled the chamber. "Very well, human, if you want to challenge me, then let us see how far your spirit can go." The chamber shifted violently, the walls stretching higher, the floor splitting into shifting platforms. Glowing, storms formed above them, streaks of light crackling like lightning. The air was heavy with energy, each breath sharp and electric. The human stood firm, his feet planted on the unstable ground. He could feel her power all around him, pressing against his skin, pulling at his mind. But he refused to bend, refused to show weakness. In that moment, he realized something important. The more he resisted, the more unsettled she became. Her power was great, but her control was tied to his reactions. If he broke, she won, but if he endured, the balance shifted toward him. Her laughter echoed again, but it was thinner now, less certain. She raised her hand and the storm above roared louder, yet the human only stared at her, unshaken. And for the first time since their encounter began, she looked away. Only for a second, only for a flicker, but it was enough. The human had found it, the weakness in her game. It was not his body she wanted to break, it was his will. And as long as his spirit stood tall, her amusement would twist into something else. Something she could not fully control, the alien. Girl turned back, her smile sharper than ever. "This is no longer only my game," she said, her voice low and dangerous. You have made it yours as well. The chamber glowed brighter, preparing for the next trial. But the human no longer felt like a simple captive. He felt the shift in power, the balance tilting, and though the danger was far from over, he knew one thing for certain. The game was no longer hers alone. The chamber glowed with restless light, the walls pulsing like a living heart. The human stood tall, his breathing heavy, but his eyes sharp. He had survived illusions, storms, and the alien girl's endless games, and now for the first time he felt the weight of her silence. She was not laughing, not teasing, not smiling. She was watching him closely, her violet eyes burning with something deeper. The alien girl slowly lowered her hand, her silver hair falling around her face. You are not like the others, she whispered, her voice softer than before. Her words hung in the air, carrying an unfamiliar weight. The human stayed quiet, waiting, his instincts telling him not to break the silence. She stepped closer, her glowing eyes searching his face as if hunting for a secret. You are not the first human I have brought here, she admitted. The human's heart skipped, but he did not let it show. Her words were calm, but behind them was something hidden, something dangerous, something heavy with memory. I have tested many before you, she continued, her voice steady. Some begged for mercy, some screamed in anger, some fell apart in silence. Her gaze shifted, her tone carrying a strange sadness. But none of them stood as you do. The human clenched his fists, his jaw tight. So he was not her first prisoner, not her first game. But why him? Why now? And what was she searching for? The alien girl raised her hand again, but this time no illusions came. Instead, the chamber dimmed until only she glowed in the darkness. Her face was softer now, almost human in its expression. I wanted to know if your kind is truly as weak as they say, she whispered. My people believe humans are small, fragile, simple creatures. Her violet eyes narrowed. They believe you survive only by luck, not by will. Her words struck the human like a blade. But instead of anger, he felt something else, a chance in you, he asked, his voice low but firm. What do you believe? The chamber echoed with the question, as if the walls themselves demanded her answer. The alien girl looked away for the first time, her smile fading. I believed them once, she said quietly. But now, I am not so sure. She turned, back, her glowing eyes brighter, but her tone was conflicted. You resist me even when I strip you of everything. You stand tall even when I push you to the edge. You are proving something I did not expect to find. The human's breath was steady, his spirit unbroken. Maybe for the first time the power between them felt equal. She was no longer just a captor, no longer only a trickster. She was a seeker, searching for an answer she could not find on her own, and he, unwillingly, had become the proof she needed. Her fingers traced a glowing pattern in the air, and a vision appeared between them. The human saw stars, thousands of them, shining in endless black space. Planets and ships moved across the vision like sparks of light. This is my people, she said, her voice carrying pride and sorrow. They are strong, they are powerful, but they fear you. Her eyes hardened as she spoke. They fear what your kind might become if your spirit continues to grow. The vision shifted, and the humans saw shadows of war, ships burning, planets falling, and humans caught in the fire. They want to keep you weak, she whispered. They want to keep you small so you never rise. Her words hit him like thunder. This was no game, no simple amusement. This was a test born of fear, born of curiosity, born of something far greater. The human's voice was steady as he answered, Maybe they fear us because they see the truth. Humans may be fragile, but we do not stop. Her eyes widened slightly at his words, as if he had spoken the very thought she was hiding. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You are right, she said. And that is why I needed to see it for myself. Her hand brushed lightly across his shoulder, not in cruelty this time, but in recognition. You have shown me that humans are not only flesh, not only fear, but fire. The chamber pulsed brighter, alive with her emotion. For the first time since his capture, the human felt no mockery in her presence. Only respect, only conflict, only the weight of something she had tried to deny. Her violet eyes glowed fiercely. As she spoke, "I cannot return you yet," she whispered, "because the game is not finished. But know this, human, you are no longer only a test. You are a warning, and perhaps a hope." The human stood silently, his spirit burning brighter than fear. He understood then that his struggle was more than survival. It was proof, not just for her, but for an entire people who doubted humanity. And though the chamber was still his prison, he no longer felt powerless because the truth had been revealed, and truth was stronger than any illusion. The chamber glowed brighter than ever, its walls alive with flowing patterns of light. The human stood tall, his bare skin still touched by the strange warmth of the place. He had survived fear, illusions, storms, and the playful cruelty of the alien girl. And now he had seen the truth, the hidden reason behind her tests. She was not only amusing herself, she was searching for something about humanity that even she could not ignore. The alien girl circled him slowly, her violet eyes never leaving his. Her playful smile had returned, but it was different now. It carried not only mischief, but respect, and a dangerous curiosity. "You have done well, human," she said softly, her voice like a melody echoing through the chamber. "You showed me strength I did not expect to see." Her silver hair shimmered as she tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "But do not think the game is finished." The human's fists tightened, his voice calm but steady. "You said, 'I proved myself,'" he replied. "Then let me go." Her laughter rang out sharp and musical, bouncing off the glowing walls. "Let you go?" she repeated with delight. "Oh no, human, you misunderstand. This was only the first part." The floor beneath them shifted suddenly, glowing lines racing outward like cracks in glass. The entire chamber trembled as if waking from sleep. The human widened his stance, bracing himself. The alien girl lifted her arms and the chamber expanded around them. The wall stretched higher, vanishing into endless darkness. The floor rippled and split into floating platforms, drifting like islands in a sea of light. "You think surviving me was enough?" she whispered, her voice echoing across the void. "But there are others, stronger than me, less playful, less curious." Her glowing eyes narrowed, sharp and dangerous. "If you cannot face them, your people will never rise." The human's chest tightened, but he did not look away. He had no weapons, no armor, no allies, but his spirit was the one thing he refused to surrender. She stepped closer, her presence filling the air like static. Her smile curved as she leaned in, her voice dropping low. "I like you, human," she said. "You amuse me, you surprise me, and you make me wonder. But amusement is not enough. I need proof." Her hand brushed his arm lightly, a spark of energy dancing across his skin. "You are strong, yes, but are you strong enough to survive the others?" The human swallowed hard, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "If there are others, I will face them." Her laughter rang again, but it was softer now, almost approving. "Good," she said. "Very good." She waved her hand, and the chamber darkened suddenly. Only the glow of her eyes remained, shining like twin stars in the void. Her voice echoed through the darkness. "This is not the end, human. This is only the beginning. The real game has yet to start." The floor beneath him trembled, light rising like fire around his feet. The human's heart pounded, but he did not step back. He stared into her glowing eyes, refusing to show fear. And then, with a sudden flash of blinding light, the chamber dissolved. The human gasped as he found himself back in the cockpit of his ship. The familiar hum of the controls filled his ears. The stars stretched before him, endless and silent. For a moment, he thought it had all been a dream, but when he looked down, his hands still carried the faint glow of her touch. His breath caught, his mind racing. Was he truly free, or had she only moved him to another part of her game? The ship's console flickered, the screen lighting up with strange alien symbols. He froze, staring as the symbols shifted into words he could read. One sentence appeared clearly on the screen, glowing in violet light. "You passed, but the game is not over." The human leaned back in his seat, his jaw tight, his chest burning with determination. He knew now that his survival was not only for himself, it was for his people, for humanity, for the truth that had been hidden from them. The alien girl had tested him, but her tests were not over. And beyond her, there were others. Stronger, crueler, less forgiving. He had stepped into something far greater than he could have imagined. As the ship drifted silently through space, the human whispered to himself, "This is not the end." His eyes burned with the fire of resolve. "If it is a game, then I will play." The stars shone brighter outside the window, endless and waiting, and in the distance, almost like a ghost, he thought he heard her laughter again, a reminder that the unfinished game had only just begun.